Good day. Welcome to My Health Cebu. I am your host, Dr. Seno, and I hope all of you are staying safe and keeping healthy. On this afternoon's program, on our program that we are going to do today, we have with us a very special guest who's going to talk to us about his foundation, or the foundation that he helped create and help grow. And this one is very particular and very important to the Cebu community. So we have with us today Bart van Oost. So that's B-A-N-O-O-S-T, and then we will put that underneath his name. So Bart, good day and welcome to the program.
Thank you, Dr. Steven. Thank you for having me today.
Right. So we're going to talk about the foundation that you belong to. So this is Cure Foundation Incorporated. So Bart here acts as the director for Cure Foundation. So very briefly, it is a aftercare shelter for survivors of online exploitation. So Bart, what you do is very important. So straight off, in behalf of the Cebu community and for all of us who deal with the health of children, we thank you for continuing to do your work in Cure Foundation. And for those in our audience who are not aware of what Cure does, can you give us a brief background on what the Cure Foundation does for the Cebu community?
Yes, so Cure Foundation started about 27 years ago. So I was not involved because I was too young at that time.
Yes.
But they were doing feedings and scholarships, and they were sending kids to school.
Right.
And they had a benevolence program for medical assistance. And then in 2013, 2014, the first cases of online sexual exploitation came into the newspapers in Cebu.
Yes.
So Cure Foundation hired me in 2015 of their aftercare shelter program, which is called Rancho ni Cristo.
Okay.
So in 2015, I decided to move to Cebu with my wife and help starting an aftercare shelter for survivors of online sexual exploitation.
Okay. So again, Bart before the program told me that he is a man of few words and he is very straight to the point, and I appreciate that. So Rancho ni Cristo, how did that name come about?
We're trying to find a name that describes what we are and what we do. So we are in the middle of nowhere.
All right. Okay.
So it's very, very green, very lush.
Yes.
And so it's like a farm, like a ranch.
I see.
That's like kind of the idea behind it. We're not trying to create like a dormitory style shelter or very high fences. And,
yes.
Like some shelters feel like a jail.
It can.
We were trying to create an open space, a child-friendly space.
Right.
So that's why we came up with the idea Rancho. And the Cristo is also because Christ is in the core of everything we do.
Right.
So that's why we call it Rancho ni Cristo.
Right. So it's a safe environment without the walls. It's
well, of course we have a fence, but we try to create environment that's open and they won't feel like they're actually in a jail, especially now during the pandemic. It's really important for them to see green, to breathe fresh air.
I agree. So how did it start? So it started at around 2013 and 14 when these cases of online exploitation were made known to be locally produced in Cebu province. So how did the organization come to recognize it as an important project to do?
Yeah, so our president, who's also a pastor, he heard about these cases. He's actually an American missionary who has been in Cebu for 40 years.
Right.
So he heard about these cases in the newspapers, and he's like, we should do something about it. So, and he started sharing with other people, what if we start building a shelter for these children that are being rescued?
Yes.
So one of his friends heard about it. He said, "Oh, I have this lot that I'm not using, so I will give you the lot." So
wow.
They donated the lot and they started building a cottage.
Right.
Like we don't have dormitory style; we have cottage style.
Yes.
So we have about 6 houses right now. And but the pastor was already in his 70s, so it's like, I like to help and I have all these ideas, but I need somebody who can do the work for me.
That's right.
So that's why he approached me, because my first trip to the Philippines was in 2008.
Right.
So I've been visiting the Philippines since 2008, and I fell in love with the country and the people, and I was very aware of the poverty. So
Okay.
I was always trying to help in ways, but when I really heard about the online sexual exploitation and I did my research,
Yes.
I really felt, I need to do something about this. So that's
right.
when I decided to move here with my wife and actually, instead of just sending money,
Yes.
to be part of the cure.
Right, right. So again, to be part of the Cure in Cure Foundation. So how many girls? I understand that this shelter is exclusively for females. And then, do you have males on board, or are they all females?
No, so when we started the shelter, we did some research, like where is there a need, because you don't want to do something that's already existing.
That's right.
You would just copy. So when we did our research, we found out that more than 50% of the victims are female.
Okay.
I mean, more than 80% of the victims are female.
That's right.
And then more than 50% of them are 12 and younger.
Okay.
So when we were starting to look around, where are there shelters that do only female and take 12 and younger?
That's right.
So when we did our research, we found out there was none.
Okay.
So that's when we decided, let's focus on girls and then 12 and younger.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that they cannot stay here if they're older than 12.
Right.
Upon admission, they have to be 12
Okay.
years and younger, because there are already other shelters that cater to the older ones.
I see. Okay.
So right now we have 36
36
girls.
Okay.
Our youngest is 4 years old,
Wow.
and our eldest is 16 years old.
Okay. So quite a large, wide range rather, of ages from 4 to 16. So what services does Cure Foundation provide for these survivors of online exploitation?
So we provide, we try to help them to recover from the trauma and abuse of their past. Just imagine that 80% of the cases of online abuse, it's actually the family that's involved. So biological parents, aunties, uncles. We have some cases as the grandparents. So how do you recover from that?
That's right.
Because you're 4 years old, you're 6 years old, you're 8 years old, and your parents are going to be in jail for a very long time.
That's right. That's right.
The minimum sentence for online exploitation is considered to be human trafficking.
Yes.
So the minimum sentence is 15 years.
Okay.
So the first thing we try to do is help these girls to understand that what happened to them is not their fault.
That's right.
Help them through different therapies.
Okay.
To talk about what happened to them.
That's right.
How to express their feelings. And of course, we call it our restorative care package. It's just not one thing you do and they'll be healed.
That's
and they'll be
right.
restored. So
Okay.
we provide in their basic needs like food, shelter. We provide education. We have a partnership with UST in Manila.
Yes.
They provide their curriculum to us.
All right.
So our girls really love that curriculum and they're doing really well. So it's education, it's their basic needs, their spiritual needs,
That's right. Okay.
therapeutical needs. Like we do different kinds of forms of therapy with them. We have trained staff. So it's not just one thing you do and they will feel better. It's really a package that we offer.
That's right. So it's a process. So if I understand correctly, now you're trying to provide the cure is not a one-time deal. No, it is a process, and then it does take years. So in the absence of a parental figure or in the absence of the family who may be involved in exploitation, the foundation comes in and helps raise these girls and hopes that what they have to provide will allow them to move forward, from what they experience at a very young age. Cure Foundation is very specific to girls less than 12 years old who have been exposed to online exploitation. It takes a very unique individual to want to get involved in this kind of work. Why is it something that you wanted to do, Bart? I can imagine the emotional and the spiritual toll that it takes on you. You had to be very strong in these two aspects to be able to deal with that kind of narrative. No, it's a narrative that not a lot of people can handle, as it can be quite taxing on the spirit. No, so what made you want to do this?
Well, actually, like I mentioned before, I was visiting the Philippines already since 2008. So I was already involved in some NGOs and trying to help. But it's usually I would visit for 2 weeks. I would go home and then save up again and come back the year after. But when I married my wife, who was from Cebu, but we met in Washington DC.
All right. Yes.
She moved from DC to be with me in Europe, and we were quite happy in Europe because we both had good jobs. So we were satisfied visiting the Philippines once a year.
Right.
And every year you come, you be generous to the family, and you be generous to the poor, and then you go home, and then you feel good for another year.
Right.
But when we really researched this, online sexual exploitation, and it really broke my heart.
Right.
And I was starting to do research, like who is helping these girls and boys, like are there shelters for them? And I really found out that this type of abuse, the way to heal from that is very specific. You cannot mix those kids with other kids that have been living on the streets, that have been abused in different ways.
That's
because it's a really specific kind of crime.
Yes.
So that's why we decided, why not try it?
Okay.
I really prayed about it.
Right.
And I was looking for lots of excuses not to do it.
Right.
But in the end, the Lord really told me, like, give it a try.
Right.
So my goal was to come for 1 or 2 years, and then see if it works.
Right.
Now we have been here for 5 years already.
Okay, and thriving at that, no?
And thriving.
Okay. So thank you in behalf of Cebu for doing this. And also, perhaps as we go into the program, we're going to talk about how the community can also help support Cure Foundation. Because there are partners who work with you, and which include so many aspects, not just donation, but including training, healthcare, and education, as you mentioned already earlier. So now that we've already told our audience about Cure Foundation, what it does, and how it supports women, girls who've undergone or have survived online exploitation, let's talk a little more about the organization. How many people do you need to run this organization, and how many girls? I think you mentioned transiently that there are about 30 girls now under your care, or over 30? 36, yes. So it does take a village to raise a child. So how many villagers do you have helping you raising these 36 unique individuals?
So we started in 2015 with just 4 people. It was me, and then we have an accountant, and we have 1 social worker, and we had somebody doing the community program. But now in 2020, we have about 23 people working for us.
Okay.
So those are, we have our main office in the city where I used to work.
Yes.
And then on site we have 3 teachers, we have 2 social workers, we have 8 house parents, we have the maintenance, we have security guards. So we're not only helping these girls, but we're also helping the local community by providing jobs for them.
Yes. So I guess the sentence that I've just said is very befitting. It does take a village to raise these children, and from what you describe, it is a sizable village that you have helping you there. So
and actually what we try to do is, because imagine that you're 4 years old, 6 years old, you really need motherly love. You really need a person that looks after you. So that's why we decided, let's hire a lot of house parents so they can really get the help that they need. So compared to other NGOs, maybe we have more house parents because the children are also younger.
Yes.
So in our cottage on our cottages, there's about 8 children per cottage, and they have 2 house parents.
Okay.
So we need to create that bond between the house mother and the children.
That's right. So, how do the older, how are they grouped? Are the older children also with the younger children, or are the cottages age specific?
We have tried different approaches, so we're still trying to figure out which one works the best. So right now we have one cottage with the really smaller ones because they need special care.
Right.
And then the other houses, it's kind of a mix. We try to keep siblings together,
Right.
especially in the beginning,
Yes.
because they want to be together.
Yes, that makes sense.
But the other 4 houses that we're using right now, it's really a mix, like from 8 years old to 16 years old. But we try to, like, we have one house, they're more independent, so they want to be like more on their own.
Right.
So that's where the older girls are. But in general, we try to mix because it's the idea of having an ate that
Yes.
looks after you, not just a house parent, but also you have an older sister or like an older ate that
right.
helps you when you need something. So that's the idea
That's
behind
right.
it. It's really like a family
Yes.
style.
So the family dynamic is not just child and parent,
Yes.
but also siblings. And hopefully that's something
Yes.
that they will get in a household with varying ages of children or adolescents in your case. So as they enter, before they are 12 years old, at what age do they leave Cure Foundation or Rancho ni Cristo?
So it really depends on their case, because most of our children are with us for protection reasons, ongoing court cases,
Okay.
ongoing investigation.
Right, right.
So, a shelter is not, it's hard to hear that from somebody who's managing a shelter, but
Right.
a shelter is not the best place to be. Like, every child deserves to be with a loving mother and father,
That's right.
to be with a loving family, but that's just not the reality right now.
That's right.
So our goal is usually, as long as the case is ongoing, to protect the child, to keep her with us. But in reality, usually they stay sometimes 2 years, sometimes 3 years. And especially now during this pandemic, it's very hard for family members to take care of them because we want to send them back to the community where they can be with their, the non-perpetrators. It could be a lola, it could be an auntie, it could be the parents that are not involved. It's very, very hard right now,
Okay.
because they're financially not capable
Right,
to provide a safe environment.
right.
And also the problem in Cebu is that OSEC is really happening in some place, and in the same places. It's usually always happening in the same places. So that community, although the parents are ready, that community is still not safe. So before, the worst thing would be that you provide all these services, you provide therapy, you provide education, and they would go back to the community to be abused again. So that's something that we want to prevent.
All right. Okay. So, Bart, we're going to take a short break, and then as we come back, we'll talk further about the programs that you have at Cure Foundation or Rancho ni Cristo. Come join us and enjoy the talk that we have with Bart. So, welcome back to My Health Cebu. You are joining me and Bart Van Aust, which translates to Bart from the East, and he tells me that he's really not from the East, he's from the North. We've been talking about Cure Foundation, where he acts as the director for an aftercare shelter for survivors of online exploitation. So Cure is interesting and unique as it is beneficial to our community, as it supports a very specific sector of children who have undergone something very difficult. And going into the break, we were talking about their activities that they hold for the children of Rancho ni Cristo. And interestingly enough about it, something interesting about it rather, is the school that they have provided. So Bart, can you share with us the school setting that Rancho ni Cristo has as you partner with the University of Santo Tomas?
Yeah, a few years ago, we found out that UST has a curriculum called Reintegration Program for the Poor.
Okay.
So when we found out about it, it looked very interesting. But the problem was, USD is also known that they have high fees to enroll.
Yes.
So when we reached out to them, they visited our shelter and they talked to our teachers, they talked to us, and they actually they really wanted to help us. So they offered us their curriculum at a very reduced price. So actually almost cheaper than sending our kids to public school.
All right. Okay.
So we started this partnership 3 years ago, and we are very happy with it. It's a very good curriculum. The UST takes really good care of us.
Yes.
If there's no pandemic, usually they send. So we have our own teachers that teach the materials, but UST wants to protect their curriculum, so they send teachers to proctor the exams.
Okay.
Now during the pandemic, it's a little bit more
difficult.
Challenging.
It is.
But we're actually very grateful for our partnership with UST.
Right.
And we actually had our first graduate this year, so she was able to be part of the virtual graduation ceremony. It was actually like we all gathered here in our school, and we watched it online. So it was a nice experience for all of them.
So it's
of course, they hope that one day they can fly to Manila and be part of the actual
graduation itself.
Ceremony.
So in the pandemic, you underwent a milestone. No? So you had your first graduate from the curriculum that you adopted or was provided by the University of Santo Tomas. So I understand that this young lady received a certificate from the University of Santo Tomas, and that was her certificate of accomplishment. No?
Yes.
Okay, and then so the curriculum that you currently use is it a traditional curriculum? Is it one that's modular? How would you describe the curriculum that you've adopted?
It's a modular system. It's actually the same system that UST provides to child actors, minors that are into sports who cannot attend regular school. So they really develop this same uniforms as the children in UST. They have the same books as the children in UST. So they really feel part of UST already. So it also gives them, they're proud of it to be part of that school.
Right. No? So that's a unique thing that I've just learned about Cure Foundation, and it makes me even more interested to probably participate. No? So leading into that, how can the Cebu community help support Cure Foundation? What are the ways in order to provide support for something very important?
So you can support in different ways. Of course, we're an NGO, so we're always in need of donations. But right now, our economy is really badly hit by the pandemic.
That's right.
We understand. You can support us by creating awareness. Still, a lot of people are unaware that Cebu is one of the hotspots for OSEC. It's also hard to acknowledge, to admit that it's really going on our beautiful island.
That's right.
So you can help us by sharing awareness about it. Watch your children, watch your neighbors.
That's right.
Create safe internet environment for your family. Especially now that we're all going to online learning, there's a few red flags that you have to watch when children are using the internet.
That's right.
That's what you can do. You can raise awareness. Right now we are into virtual events. So if you have ideas for virtual events, or you want to have a virtual hangout with our clients, we can also do that. But we're still adjusting to the new normal. It's really, we're trying to figure out what is still possible. Because before we had, especially this time, the Christmas party starts. Like there's groups that will come here for Christmas parties, gift giving. We have medical missions, we have dental missions. But right now, most of it is on hold because of the pandemic. So we have to be creative. So if you want to partner with us, be creative and let us know how you would like to partner with us.
Pero Bart, you mentioned something that's very important, and a part of the advocacy is the awareness and spreading awareness for it. So I'm glad that you raised that, so that for those who are watching this particular talk that we're having, they become more vocal about their advocacies and speak up and spread the word about trying to protect children from online exploitation. And part of that is also being vigilant, with what other children watch, which includes these red flags that you mentioned. Just before the show, I was talking with some of our studio staff here, and they were telling us that even on very popular website browsers, there are going to be pop-ups for pornography even as children browse through them. So you have to be very careful and very aware on how you can protect your children from that kind of exposure. And not just exposure, the flip side to that is exploitation. We have, for those among you who know of children who are being exploited, or even if you suspect that they are, please do not turn a blind eye towards it. If you can, be an active participant in their cure by first pointing out perpetrators and being part of the solution, not just for Cebu, for all children all over the world who may be undergoing something similar. So we are part of a global community. BART is part of that global community. All the way from Europe, it comes down to Cebu, falls in love with an island, and comes up with this organization that has helped some children to move on from something as traumatic as online exploitation. So moving on to other parts of Cure Foundation, we talked about your school. What other extracurricular activities are available to children who are in Rancho Ni Cristo, BART? How else do they get a well-rounded curriculum under your care?
Well, our curriculum is very broad. It's really what we're trying to do is, most of them, their childhood was kind of stolen from them.
Yeah.
Imagine that
Agree.
Your parents are in jail, you're away from your family. So you try to create those childhood memories. I think everybody has those childhood memories from when they were young.
Yes.
They were playing at the beach or they were going out. So that's something that we're trying to create here. So it's really, we try to create like a loving community where they watch movie. We have karaoke sessions every Sunday. I'm not sure our neighbors are so happy about it, but we have karaoke, we have biking,
Okay.
we have gardening, we have arts and craft, we have sports. They like to play volleyball.
Okay.
So it's really we have a nice playground for the younger ones. So we really try to, you cannot put all of them in a box. Like you have to do art or you have to play music. We also provide music lessons for some of them. So each girl has a different personality.
Right.
So they enjoy, they want to express themselves in different ways. So that's what we are trying to create, an environment where they can express themselves by being creative or by playing music or by being outdoors.
Right.
And of course, there has to be some structure. There is structure. You have to go to school. And there's some activities that you need to participate in, but they also have, times during the week they can really choose for themselves what they want to do.
Right. So we'll take another break, and then as we come back, we're going to talk more about Cure Foundation, and then we're going to give Bart a few minutes to reach out to our audience and to tell us how we can further participate in caring for children and to protect them from online exploitation. Come join us. So welcome back to My Health Cebu. We are in a conversation with Mr. Bart Van Oost. He is the director for Cure Foundation Incorporated, which does very good work with survivors for online exploitation. So before we took a break, we were talking about the extracurricular activities that they have at their shelter, because when you talk about providing a life for survivors, it's not just education, it's not just shelter, it's not just food. We're all talking about experiences, and especially in a young child, as this child brings these experiences into adulthood, it's something that you can fall back on. It helps develop personality and things like that. So Bart, tell us a little more about, I understand that you have a farm that you're building there in your area. So what is it like? Apart from, is there fruit? Is there vegetables? What's the Rancho Ni Cristo farm like?
Yes, so we have a very big property. So when we started this thing 5 years ago, we were also trying to, most NGOs, most shelters are struggling with finances.
Yes.
It's always finding money and
Yes.
tell donors like, we need your money, we need your money, we need your money.
Yeah.
So we decided, why not change it and tell donors, we need your money, but we are also trying to take care of ourselves.
That's right.
So that's when we trying to we started to plant trees. We started to plant vegetables, fruits, and right now we are just reaping the harvest from that hard work 5 years ago. So we have lots of papaya, we have saging, we have dragon fruit.
Wow.
We have lemons, lemoncito.
Okay.
We have our vegetable garden with okra and pepino, and whatever imagine, alubati. We have our tilapia farm where we have we put in the little tilapia and then grow chickens.
Right.
So it's also really to show our donors that yes, we would like to have your money, but we're also trying to take care of ourselves.
That's right.
And it really has benefited us during this pandemic, especially during ECQ. It was really, really hard to go out.
Right.
And for our girls, it's also therapeutical, like just going to the garden, sweat in the sun, and work out a little bit.
Right. So
they enjoy it.
So it's good, no? It's a form of you're teaching them life skills, So, but apart from that, you're building experiences, and the third leg to that stool that you've built is you're providing a basic. You're providing food, So you participate, and then I understand this is how you grew up as a child in Europe.
Yes, my parents had a backyard, and they would plant vegetables and fruits, and they still until today. Every time I go home, they will send me to the garden. Okay, what do you want to eat tonight? Can you just get it? So we have tomatoes, and we have grapes, and apples. So they say if you want to eat, just go out and get what you need.
Right.
And it's really farm to table. Like, if you buy it in a grocery store, you don't really know where has it been, have they been using chemicals on it. And I'm really into healthy living. Like, I know where our vegetables have been. I know that our mangoes are nobody sprayed on it.
That's right.
Tilapia doesn't have any antibiotics.
That's right.
It's just for me, just to show like that you can do healthy life, healthy living.
Yeah. So there's so many layers of benefit from having to do this, at your center at Rancho Ni Cristo. So there's that understanding that the children will learn to hopefully use some of those skills in raising chickens, tilapia, and growing their own food. And at the same time, it also secures their health by making sure that they don't get exposed unnecessarily to pesticides and these heavy metals. And it also provides a basic need, the food that you consume on a daily basis. So you talked about other extracurricular activities other than the farming. There's sports facilities as well, and any programs that you're looking forward to in the next few months. I understand that Christmas is just around the corner. However, it's going to be a modified Christmas for a lot of us, as we cannot gather in large communities or allow people we do not know into our own homes. So how is Rancho Ni Cristo going to celebrate Christmas this year?
Yeah, that's something that we are starting to plan for now.
Right.
Because this is the first time we experience. I think anyone has experienced a pandemic in his lifetime.
That's right.
So we want to make it. It's hard for the girls because just imagine. Usually they get to see their family members at least once a month.
That's right.
So they haven't seen their family members for 6-7 months now. So Christmas is really about family.
It is.
So
it is.
Usually before Christmas we also have a small event in the city where we will invite the family members. So this is going to be very challenging now. So we have to be creative and start planning for it now. But I don't have any actual
plans
yet. But probably it will involve lechon and music and lights.
Right. But just
little gifts.
Right. So it's going to be a modified Christmas for all of us. So other than the school, other than the farm that you're currently building, in the years to come, how does Rancho Ni Cristo plan to grow? Are there any projects in the pipeline that you're excited to share with our audience, or how so that they can somehow participate? Is there anything that you'd like to share with our audience with regards to the growth of the Cure Foundation?
Yeah, so actually right now we are finishing our library. So we are building our own library, which will help them in their studies. Some of them are really behind.
Yes.
And it's also we're transferring to online tutoring. Like we have some organizations, they provide online tutoring for free for our children,
Okay.
so especially in math and English. So that's helping them. And a library, a dedicated place, will really help towards that.
Yes.
We're also building a therapy room.
Okay.
Right now we do therapy. We have a payag therapy.
Okay.
We have like some rooms available, but it's not really like, it doesn't feel cozy. So we're also creating our own therapy room that's probably going to be finished in the next few months.
Okay.
And then we really want to expand our farm. So right now we're studying what works, what doesn't work. And then we're also with our girls, we also developing like this music lessons for them, because most of them, they really enjoy music and dance. So we're also trying to find out, before people would come here and teach dance and would come here teach music lessons, but you know, because the pandemic is so challenging, so we're looking for online curriculum, where we download YouTube videos, do it yourself. So that's been challenging, but so far it's working.
Okay. So from what I've gathered is that you're trying to expand, but working within the parameters of the pandemic, and it seems as though that the growth is going to be virtual or online, which includes support in the form of tutoring, lessons for music, and part of that growth is also the infrastructure that's needed to support it, which includes the rooms. How's the connectivity in your area? So I understand you're in the Bukid, but are you getting a steady supply of connectivity when it comes to the internet?
Yes, we're actually, since 2 months ago, we have our own Wi-Fi connection.
All right, okay.
So it's not perfect, but it's working. It enables us to do online tutoring. It helps me doing Zoom meetings like this.
Right.
And actually also we are providing video calls now for all of our clients. So they can, instead of meeting their families in person, they can video call, which is, you know, very interesting and very funny from time to time, because they're, you know, they like to show where they are to their family, and their family will share. So it's kind of reunions. Of course, it's better in person, but the Wi-Fi connection has really helped us to connect with family members.
Right. So I'm seeing this as it's an interesting aspect to the internet. You know? So it is the internet which, and the exploitation of these girls, which brought them to Career Foundation, and then at the same time, it is through the internet that they're going to repair, they're going to grow, and hopefully overcome what they've gone through. So again, as part of this program, we want to continue to advocate for people out there who are listening to protect children from online exploitation, and to be advocate by being aware of it and by spreading the need to become vigilant. So as we've heard a lot about Cure Foundation today through our program. We've talked about how they started and where they are now and how they intend to grow in the future. As we close the program, we would like to give Bart a few minutes in order to encourage our audience to help support not just Cure Foundation, but support prevention of and protection of children from online exploitation. So Bart, I give you the floor and to talk to our audience for just a few minutes to tell them about what you do and how to support children from online exploitation.
So thank you, Dr. Steve, for giving me this opportunity. I think the most important part I want to share with you is that although we like what we're doing, you know, we enjoy our work and we enjoy restoring these girls, you know, back to where they're supposed to be, helping them. It would be even better if there was no need for her to be rescued.
That's right.
So that's why
perfect.
we really, you know, it's hard because every time there's a rescue operation, we are excited because we think like, oh, another girl that we can help.
That's right.
That's also heartbreaking, like, you know, another girl that has been hurt. And it's not just girls, there's also boys.
That's right.
So I want to encourage you to be vigilant. to be really aware of this. Actually, a big problem right now is self-trafficking. So these are girls and boys that are 15, 16 years old.
That's right.
Who share their videos, share their pictures just for money. And they get rescued, but you cannot put them in a shelter because they will just run away. And for them, it's easy money.
That's right.
But they forget that those pictures and videos end up on the internet forever.
That's right.
For everyone to see. You have teenagers in your house. Please be open and honest with them. Talk to them about TikTok and WhatsApp and Viber. And you don't have to sit down next to them with everything they do, but you just be aware and be open and talk openly with them that this is a different generation. This is a social media generation. But I'll probably face this problem when my girls are older.
Right.
But you really have to be open and honest about it.
Yes.
And just share with them the harms that it can do.
Right.
Because most people say it's just online. It doesn't really hurt. But from my side, what I see, the girls we deal with, and those girls are not self-trafficked, but trafficked by family members. But it really causes a lot of trauma.
That's right.
It really causes something, their spirits are broken. They're so hurt by family members, which is totally unnecessary.
That's
so
right.
Please watch your children, help them, and just be vigilant because there's many predators out there that are just looking for younger girls and teenagers that are willing to expose themselves.
That's right. Okay, so thank you, Bart. That summarizes it so well. The internet is a tool. It's neutral. It's how you use it. For young children and for adolescents who are still developing their executive function, they may make mistakes with regard to decision making, and some of these mistakes will always be online. So it's important to protect them. And we're thankful for foundations such as this to help support it, but it would be even better for our community if it was not necessary at all. So we will not turn a blind eye towards it. We'll continue to advocate for it. And we thank Bart for joining us this afternoon, for sharing with us his experiences with CURE. And I hope that the program has helped promote this advocacy, and hopefully somebody watching this will also prevent online exploitation for children out there, not just in Cebu, but in anywhere that they are right now. So Bart, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate the time that you spent with us and for sharing with us CURE Foundation, Rancho ni Cristo. And in behalf of My Health Cebu, I thank all of our viewers for spending time with us today. Stay healthy, stay happy, stay safe.